we put this together, we're trying to be not too repetitive, although we have similar thoughts on how to balance both life within work and life without work and life experiences. So I'm going to try not to repeat too much of what Holly said. So for those of you who already have academic positions, this will probably look pretty familiar to you. So these are the types of activities that most of us are called upon to do in our day-to-day life. So in my case, I'm PI on one R01, I'm co-investigator on another one, which involves managing multiple projects in different labs. I'm also, unfortunately, capstone and honors thesis advisor for a good number of students. And I say unfortunately because as opposed to PhD, usually there's not a whole lot of product that comes out of these, but it's a necessary evil. Teaching and advising, at my institution, we have a 4-course per year academic load. I'm fortunate enough to get buyout for being graduate program director and also on my grant, but still 2 courses a year, one of them has 120 students in it, is considerable amount of teaching. Academic advising, we're fortunate to have an undergraduate academic advisor, so we don't have to advise our undergraduate students, but that's a new thing for us. In the past, we've always had, I had 35, 40 undergraduate advisees for many, many years. And so I'm sure many of you will be in institutions where you also have to do undergraduate advising. Service, I'm graduate program director, which is a 1-course per year release, and the work I do for it is way more than a 1-course per year release. And it involves a lot of writing memos, a lot of running graduate admissions, which if any of you are in the field, we get lots and lots of applicants these days for our clinical training programs. And so it's a lot of work in addition to other service things like journal and grant reviewing and RSAC. So somehow everything gets done. The point of this is that it seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but we learn how to balance it. I've been at UMass for 25 years, and so over 25 years, you do learn how to balance certain things. What you don't see on here is life. So this was supposed to be work and life, but what didn't make it to here is life. I also have 2 kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 19-year-old. One of my kids had an IEP for years. The other had a 504 plan. And so navigating the special ed system and as a parent was very time-consuming at certain points. And so the life takes up a lot of time, too. But again, somehow it all gets done. In retrospect, you wonder how it all gets done, but it does. And so the rest of this talk is involved in some things that work for me and some kernels of wisdom that I've gotten from my time being a faculty member. And so some of this might not apply to you at all, and some of it might apply to you. So like Holly had said, publications are currency. So the most important thing is to get your publications out. And so it really depends what's important at your institution. But at our institution, it's number of publications, but it's not only number of publications. It's also where you are authorship-wise. Are you first author? Like Mario said, are you last author but lead author? And strength of journal also are important. And presentations are important because it's good to network during presentations, but it's also important to turn those presentations into publications. I've sat on our school personnel committee for a bunch of years, and one of the things I see happening is people have tens and tens and tens of presentations, but they're not turning those presentations into publications, and I think that's a problem. I think it's important to be programmatic in your research, so to have a research program that is actually a program and has a theme. But I also think it's really good to find collaborators to help you branch out. So I think this is more natural for some people than for others. But I think one of the things that's really been helpful for me is the links I've established with people in our psychology department to work on things like eye tracking and links with people at other universities. So I think it's really nice for me to reach out beyond what I was trained to do and to get expertise from other areas that help me in the things I don't know how to do but I want to learn more about. So I think this is a really nice thing for you to do if you haven't started doing it already, is to try to establish links both within your university as well as at other universities. As far as writing goes, I think you just have to, at some point, stop avoiding it and sit down and write. And we have this great writing workshop every year at our university where it's the beginning of the summer, so it really sets you up for a good summer of writing. And one of the things I learned there is stream of consciousness writing, or brain dump. So yes, it won't be your final product, but you don't have to write your final product in your first draft. I think sometimes you just have to start, and just starting is 3/4 of the battle. At least for me, starting is 3/4 of the battle. And so for me, if I can get something down on paper and I go back to it, it's not very good. Sometimes it's better than I thought it would be just from writing. But I think for me that works. I also think you have to commit to setting time aside to writing, because it's the easiest thing in the world to not do. You know, you can always read another article. You can always look something up online. You can always think about how to analyze your data. But at some point you have to write, and you just have to sit down and say, I'm going to write now, and not let anything else get in the way of that writing. And again, a writing group or club is great. I know I have a colleague who they had an online writing club at UMass a couple years ago for the summer, where they had to check in, I think it was every day or maybe every other day, about how much writing they did that day. And I think that's really effective for some people, knowing that someone is looking over you. It's kind of like Weight Watchers. If you have to be accountable to someone, I think that's really important. Take advantage of grant writing resources at your home institutions. So I know at most R1 institutions, there are resources there, workshops, people who will read your grant. And I think it's really important to take advantage of those. Ask people who are successful grant writers to share theirs with you, not only to read your grant, but to share their grants with you so that you get a good model of what a fundable project is like. I do think it is, when you come up for tenure, I think at many institutions, even if you haven't gotten a grant, I think it's important to demonstrate that you're trying to get funding. And so I think you do need to be strategic. I don't know if it's great to do 10 a year, but I do think also they want to see that you've at least tried to get funding, even if you haven't been successful. I know there's an acknowledgement at our university how difficult it is now to get federal funding, and so that is taken into account as long as they've seen that you're actually trying and that you're revising and that you're making the good effort. And I think also there's a benefit of grant writing beyond the getting of the funding, and that is that it makes you really think about your research program. So if you're writing a 4-year grant, you really need to think about what you want to be doing for the next 4 years, and I think there's a lot of value to that, even if you don't get the grant. Take advantage of eager undergraduates who will help you through research. I know our undergrads are dying to help with research. The only problem is keeping them busy sometimes if you have too many of them. So I do think it's good to use them, but you don't want too many of them, because then you have to think about what am I going to do with them? And I think for some of us who do clinically based research, where we have to find research subjects who meet certain criteria, I think you sometimes have to take your dog and pony show on the road and just go and give presentations to local agencies in order to get subjects. But I think it's a really good thing to do. I think it benefits everybody. And this is a good thing to have your grad students do also, is to develop this type of presentation skills to look for subjects. Okay, like Holly, I spent most of my time on teaching, on research, but I'm going to talk a little bit about teaching. So again, at our institution, even if you're a good teacher, they want you to see that you're trying to improve. So I think even if you're a great teacher and you get great teaching evals or however they do it at your institution, I think taking advantage of teaching improvement programs is a really good thing to demonstrate when you go up for tenure. At our institution, we're allowed to use undergraduate teaching assistants, so I teach a mainly junior level class, and I use seniors in addition to my graduate teaching assistants. And I think if you can do this, it's a great thing to do, because there's a lot of scut work involved in teaching that they do a really good job with. And I think it's great to be available to your students, but I think you need to learn how to shut your office door, because if you're too available to your students, it really does take away from your research time. They will eat you up if they like you. And so I think it's really good for you to set some limits there, to say, you can come and see me at these particular times, but at other times, I'm going to be in my office and I'm going to shut my door because I need to get my work done. Service. I do think it's really important to find out what you're getting into before you commit. So I think it's a very reasonable thing, especially as junior faculty members, to ask which are the least time-consuming service activities that you can take on. And I know in our department, we steer our junior faculty into being union rep, being library rep, sitting on the committees that never meet, just so that they can say they're doing the service, but they're not actually devoting a lot of time to service. But there are some service activities that I think can be really useful for you as a new faculty member. So things that improve your record, like sitting on personnel committee, I think is a really valuable thing for junior faculty members to see pre-tenure. So they know what people are evaluated on when they come up for tenure. Doing grant reviews. I think someone this morning, I think Kara said doing grant reviews was a really good activity, and I think it's a great activity. Something that will enhance your research, like reviewing manuscripts, talking at area agencies, and finally letting others in the field get to know you, like being on national committees. These things are service activities that I think can promote your record, and I think that's what you need to devote your time to. At my university, they don't really consider service to the university or the department as service they care about. They don't really care about service anyway, but the service they care about is all service to your profession and service in terms of grant review and things like that. What works for me, again, these might not work for you. I'm a real list person, and I'm a real list person like paper and pencil list person because I like to cross things out. And so I like to make a new list every Monday morning so that I can see what did I get done with last week and what came up that I have to do now and what's still on the list that never seems to get done. I'm also a morning person, and so for me, I have to do anything that takes thinking before about 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I shut down. So I have to do my hard stuff in the morning. I have to write, I have to revise, and I save things for the afternoon and evening that I don't need to think a lot about. Grading is one thing I do in the afternoon and evening, writing letters of recommendation, other things that you need to do that don't take a whole lot of thought. And then I would say, especially for junior faculty members, use your summer wisely. If possible, don't get talked into teaching during the summer because the summer is a really great opportunity for you to do a lot of writing and research. And that's really what's important. If you are at a Research One university, like Holly said, you can be an okay teacher and get tenure, but you're not going to be a weak researcher and get tenure. So I would guard your summer wisely and use it wisely. And for me, it's reading and thinking, things that I don't get nearly enough time to do during the academic year. But writing is really important, too, to do during the summer. Other advice, again, like Holly said, figure out what's important at your university. So what are the priorities? What is going to get you promoted? And this will vary from school to school, but it's something, a reasonable thing to ask your chair and your dean and your higher administration what they value. At the end of each semester, think about your last semester and figure out, were you as productive as you want to be? And if not, what do you need to do differently? Because time goes really fast. You know, you'll be coming up, if you're at, like our university, you'll be coming up for pre-tenure in 2 years. Or you'll start the pre-tenure process in 2 years. And so that's not a lot of time to figure out. Time really goes fast. And then this last thing, Be Switzerland, is just, not that you need to keep your mouth shut when you're a junior faculty member, but you don't want to ruffle any feathers. You have to remember that the people who are going to be Is that better? Yeah. I don't answer student emails on nights and weekends. I don't expect my colleagues to answer emails on nights and weekends because I try to devote that time to my family. I like to plan ahead because you never know what crisis is going to happen next. And so if you can get things done in a timely manner, you'll be better off. My husband and I both have what we call crunch mode, meaning where we have periods in our work lives where things are really, really hectic and hard. And we need to get help either from each other or from outside help during those times to help us get through it. And then one thing, if you're someone who likes to get things done, one of the problems with an academic career is that there's always something you could be doing. But it doesn't mean you have to do it right now. You can sometimes put it off till later. And then my last piece of advice is your kids really will grow up really fast. And so try to live in the moment more and try to enjoy them while they're small because before you know it, they'll be gone. So that's all I have.